All right, let's get right into it. The news is out, and it is a big one. Tesla is officially discontinuing two of its most iconic cars, the very cars that really started this whole EV revolution. We're talking about the Model S and the Model X. They're gone. And this is way more than just a simple product refresh. It's a sign that the entire identity of the company is changing. So you have to be asking, how did we even get here? And, more importantly, where is Tesla going now? So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll cover the official announcement about ending the Model S and X. Then, we're going to dig into the numbers, because they tell a really interesting story. After that, we'll look at Tesla's wild pivot into robotics, check out the reactions and the massive risks, and finally, we'll talk about what you need to watch for next.
Okay, so let's start with the announcement itself. This wasn't some leak or a rumor, no. This came straight from the top, and it really sent some shockwaves through the industry.
And there it is. That was the bombshell from CEO Elon Musk, dropped during the Q4 2025 investor call. You really can't get more direct than that. It was a clear, final statement on the end of the line for their flagship sedan and that famous Falcon-winged SUV.
And just to be crystal clear, this is not a temporary pause. It's not like they're retooling for a new version. This is a full, complete stop. The production lines that used to build these premium cars, they are being totally repurposed for something, well, something completely different.
So why would a company kill its own famous flagship products? I mean, it seems crazy, right? Well, as is so often the case, the answer really lies in the numbers. Let's take a look at the data that basically forced Tesla's hand. The sales figures here tell a pretty brutal story. Just in 2025, sales for the Model S and X just fell off a cliff. They dropped by over 40%. Now that's not a little dip. That is a steep, consistent free fall that screamed one thing. People just weren't buying them like they used to.
And this chart right here, it illustrates the problem perfectly. The factory was set up to build 100,000 of these cars a year, but they were selling less than half of that. I mean, you don't have to be a business genius to know that running a massive factory at half capacity is a recipe for losing a ton of money. Now, they did try to fix it. They did a refresh in 2025. They even tacked on a price hike of about 5,000 euros, hoping to spark some new excitement, but it was a total flop. The sales just kept on sliding, and that was pretty much the final nail in the coffin for both models. So, okay, if Tesla is walking away from the very cars that made them famous, what on earth are they becoming? And this is where the story takes a huge turn. We're moving from the end of an era to the beginning of something way more ambitious and, honestly, a lot riskier. What we're seeing is a complete identity crisis, or maybe a reinvention. They're saying it themselves. They're going from being a company that makes cars to what they are calling a physical AI company. So this isn't just about a new product, it's a whole new philosophy for the entire company. And the absolute centerpiece of this new vision, it's a robot named Optimus. This is the humanoid robot that Tesla is going to build on the exact same assembly lines that used to make the Model S and X. And Musk's vision for this thing is, well, it's huge. He thinks it could be a bigger deal than their entire car business. And check out this timeline. It is incredibly aggressive. The plan is to have these robots doing real, complex work in their factories this year, and then start selling them to the public as early as 2027. And the end goal? To be producing a mind-boggling 10 million robots every single year. So what happens when one of the most famous car companies in the world says, yeah, we're killing our flagship cars to build an army of robots? Well, as you can probably guess, the reactions were, let's just say, they were all over the map. The professional investors on Wall Street, they barely even blinked. I mean, for them, this was just business. They saw the terrible sales numbers and they figured this was coming eventually. The market had already kind of assumed this would happen, so the official news wasn't a shock at all. But public opinion, especially on places like Reddit, whoa, that was a completely different story. This comment right here really captures that feeling of deep skepticism. You know, the idea of replacing a real physical car with what many people still see as a sci-fi dream or vaporware. And this user really hits the nail on the head when it comes to the financial risk. The big worry here is that Tesla is just swapping one struggling product for an even bigger, more expensive gamble that might never pay off. Which brings us to this number. And honestly, this is one of the wildest numbers in this whole story. 309. Now, this is a key metric used to value a company. A normal car company might have a number in the single digits. So 309 is just astronomical.
What it means is that investors are betting that this insane pivot to robotics will be a perfect, flawless success. There is zero room for error priced into that stock.
So, with a gamble this big and with expectations that high, the big question is, how will we know if it's actually working? Let's talk about the key signals we all need to be watching to see if this pivot is genius or if it's a disaster in the making.
So if you want to know how this is going, experts say to keep your eyes on 4 things. First, are they actually getting that factory retooled on time? Second, are we seeing real, actual proof of Optimus doing complex jobs, not just waving for the camera? Third, are the Model 3 and Y still selling like hotcakes? Because that's what's paying for this whole robot adventure. And finally, that 2027 sales deadline. Any delay there is going to be a huge red flag.
And so, it all comes down to this one massive question. Is killing the Model S and X to build millions of robots a visionary move that will create the company of the future, or is it a reckless gamble that abandons the very thing that made Tesla, well, Tesla? We don't have the answer yet, but those signals we just talked about, they're going to tell us the story, one way or another. Thanks so much for joining me for this breakdown.